What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the MMA Hoodie Fight Predictions. This is going to be for UFC 256, and it's an exciting card, that's for sure. Real quick, just to quickly recap last week's card. Essentially, I got 6-2. I got the co-main and main event incorrect, but all my other predictions were on par, which is awesome. I hope you guys had some good picks, whether we pick the same or didn't. I just hope you guys did well. As I said, with the Jake Collier and Vellante fight, I knew this was going to happen, and I waited until the walkout, and when I saw John Vellante's face and the way he was breathing, I knew that he wasn't in the mode to win. He did have some crazy strikes, like his power was totally present in that fight, but I actually picked Jake Collier and put a bet on him just as the fight was about to start. Just made some easy cash there. That being said, my assessment of the OSP and the Jamal Hill fight was obviously incorrect. One of you actually took that totally to heart, and it's funny because this individual, I'm not gonna, get too much into it. I apologize if I offend any of you guys with the way I talk about fighters. Just understand that I'm talking for that moment. We're not always going to agree, and that's okay. But if you're going to call me out for something or, start being a little baby about it, I'm A, not going to respond to those comments, and B, maybe post your prediction before the video and don't come looking for my incorrect picks after the fact. Anyway, that being said, I'm not going to get too much into this kind of stuff and this kind of banter and talk with you guys. But yeah, I was totally wrong on that pick. And Jamal Hill, he put me on notice, and, maybe he's the real deal. So I hope he does well in the future. But I needed to see more experience out of him, and I needed to see what he could do with a higher level fighter. And he presented himself well. So good on him. Maybe it wasn't that Jamal Hill was good. Maybe it was that Ovince St. Preux wasn't performing well. Who knows? That being said, guys, we're going to get into the UFC 256 fight card, starting with the prelims, and then we're going to end off with the main card. I'm trying to save time on making these videos. I'm trying to cut them down from being like an hour long to being, 30 minutes or so. So I'm going to try breaking these down a lot quicker. So starting with the first fight, it's going to be Chase Cooper versus Peter Barrett. Man, this is a tough one because Chase Cooper is pretty new at the game. But yeah, the last fight that he fought was his first loss. It goes to show that, he's not some sort of crazy prodigy that's going to go out there and beat every single opponent that he, walks through just as he gets into the UFC. He's still got some holes in his game, maybe. But the thing that surprises me about Jake right now is the fact that he is a huge favorite. And, Peter Barrett could pull up an upset here. He's more experienced. He does have 7 wins by knockout. He's an older fighter, but then this is also his first fight in the UFC, which is pretty weird. I honestly think this could go either way. This is a no bet for me. I'm going to go with Hooper, just hoping that maybe he's improved those holes that he has in his game. Maybe he'll be a little faster than Peter Barrett and overwhelm him. If you can get him down with that ground game and jiu-jitsu, I think he'll win. But yeah, the next fight up is Sergey Spivac and Jared Vanderaa. So, man, neither of these fighters are really impressive to me. And man, when I say, because I'm, once again, going back to the guy who got butt hurt, when I say not impressive or, if I kind of talk a little poorly about a fighter, it's not that I don't think they're a professional fighter or anything. It's just that for the moment, I'm just talking for the moment and in this instance. And we look at Spivac, and he's got 6 wins by submission. He's not exactly accurate in his striking, but he's got the more opportunities to win here. And Vanderaa, this is his first fight in the UFC, which some people are even questioning why he has a fight in the UFC. This is the weird part about the UFC. I see ever since their connection with ESPN, the dynamic of how they set up fights, and it could be because of COVID as well, but how they are setting up fights is a lot like how other sports are set up, where teams are fighting regularly. It seems like certain fighters are just fighting regularly. If they fought 2 months ago, 3 months ago, they're fighting again right away. if they aren't injured. But on top of that, we're seeing this factor of like these newcomers just being slotted in last minute replacements. Now, although Vanderaa has 7 wins by knockout, I'm not sure if he's deserving of this opportunity. I kind of feel like he's someone that would need to still prove himself and prove his fighting skills. So I might be watching this fight closely just to get a feel of Vanderaa and what he can do. If he wins, it's probably going to be by a knockout. He'll also have the slight reach advantage by 2 inches, which also gives him like a slight size advantage. But because Spivac's kind of been a bit more in the game, as well as has had some UFC fights, I've seen more out of him. I'm going to go with Spivac. As far as how he wins, man, he's had 6 submissions. We can give him another sub. I'm going to go with Vanderaa not really knowing Spivac's game plan and kind of getting overwhelmed. Maybe Spivac could get a submission there, but Spivac for the win. Next up, we have one of the fights that actually changed up. It's Tecia Torres now versus Sam Hughes. Right away, I'm just going to let you know I'm going with Torres. She's more experienced, but she has lost 4 of her last 5. So hold on to that thought when I say I'm going with Torres. She's got good stand-up game, and she kind of is the one that kind of leads the dance. You know what I mean? She's the one that pushes the pace and kind of determines the pace of the fight. Not necessarily is constantly putting pressure, but is the one that's determining when pressure is being pushed, when to lay back. She's really smart and tactical that way. Now, Sam Hughes, she's going to have to assert herself early. She's coming on this fight like last minute notice, like 1 week. Now, the interesting part here is she has won 4 of her last 5 fights. And she has a 4-inch height advantage and a 3.5-inch reach advantage. I think in this situation, it might be a smart idea for Sam to close the distance and look to either push Tecia against the cage or take her down. At which point, Sam has a better chance of winning. Now, the odds on this one, I don't have it up, but if the odds on this one are wide, I would wait for the first round to play out and see how Sam is doing. If she kind of looks like she has a chance, then maybe put some money there. But otherwise, I got Tecia just based on experience. I don't think just because Sam has won 4 of her last 5 and Tecia has lost 4 of her last 5, that's going to play too much of a factor. And I think also Tecia would take this fight simply based on the fact that she probably knows she could beat Sam, and after coming off 4 losses, she could use a win. If she doesn't win this fight, I'd be quite concerned. On to the next fight, we got Gavin Tucker versus Billy Quarantillo. I think this fight's going to be quite fun. We're going to start with Tucker. He's got good fight IQ and kind of follows a game plan, like he's really structured that way. Billy, on the other side of things, has won 5 of his last 5 fights. He will also have a 4-inch reach advantage and the height advantage. The interesting thing as well about Billy is that he's relentless throughout the fight, and he kind of warms up slowly into the pace. Like, as the fight goes on, he might improve a little bit better. I don't know if that's because he kind of holds off in the first round and kind of maybe makes sure he doesn't gas out. But I do see that he kind of picks up the pace a little bit more as the fight goes on. So as this fight goes on, I think Billy will have a better chance of winning. Gavin Tucker, he recently beat Justin James, but to be quite honest, that was Justin James' second fight in the UFC. He came guns ablaze in the first fight, and then he did that in his second fight, trying to do that against Gavin Tucker and gassed himself out. And then he recently fought just last week, and he lost. So that win against Justin James, I really don't give him much for that. But this is going to be a fun fight. I also predict that it'll be close. I'm going to give the edge to Billy Quarantillo. Next up, we got Mackenzie Dern versus Verna Jandiroba. This is where I'm a little bit confused because a lot of people are hyped up on Dern, but I kind of am on the side of Jandiroba here. Hear me out. Now, we'll start with Dern. She's got 6 wins by submissions, and both of these girls have won 4 of their last 5. Dern has outstanding ground game that, I'm not taking away from that. I'm not saying that she's in any way, shape, or form not going to be able to compete with Jandiroba. But the interesting thing is, if Dern does get taken down here by Jandiroba, she'll encourage it. The problem there is the fact that Jandiroba does have good wrestling. So, okay, Dern has the jiu-jitsu, but if Jandiroba could avoid the submissions, could she kind of overwhelm Dern with the wrestling? Both of these fighters are dominant, so it should make for a good fight. But I really feel that Jandiroba has fought the better competition recently as well. She is great at takedowns, and because she's good at her defensive strategies, maybe that'll allow her to avoid those submission attempts by Mackenzie Dern. As long as she can avoid these submission attempts, as long as she can kind of make Dern fall into her game, I don't see any reason why Virna Jandiroba can't win. And I believe the odds are pretty wide on this one now. So this might be one. Actually, she is going to be my underdog pick for this card. So if there's an underdog that you want to pick, I think you should look into Virna Jandiroba. I think this will be a close fight either way. I think both of these girls are talented, but as a result of maybe the odds as well as the odds of how close I think they can compete with one another, I am going to go with the underdog. I am going to go with Virna Jandiroba on this. Next up, we got Cub Swanson versus Daniel Pineda. This should be a fun fight as well. The thing is, Cub, he got injured recently. I believe it was in some grappling event. And he'll definitely look to stay striking. Like, we've seen that recently in all his other fights. And he's looked pretty good in his recent fights. I mean, they've been competitive, right? He hasn't won, but he's looked competitive, especially in his last fight. Although he's lost 4 of his last 5, he's fought, really good competition. And he's been able to still push the pace in those fights. And Cub, let's be honest, there's something with Cub that all his fights tend to look good. Let's not forget, he also has 11 knockout victories. Now, for sure, the couple bad injuries that he's had is going to play a factor here. So we got to look at what Daniel Pineda can do to overwhelm Cub. Now, Pineda's got 18 wins by submission. That's crazy. On top of that, he has 9 wins by knockout. He should look to close the distance, and he should look to go for subs. I think especially with the injuries Cub has, he's going to be especially vulnerable to that. And since Cub is going to look to stand, Pineda can totally look to take that game out by taking him down and threatening the subs. Pineda has also won 3 of his last 5, so he's kind of got a better record compared to Cub, especially as of recently. And both of these guys are roughly pretty close in age, so I don't think age is going to be a factor here. And also, you got to consider the amount of times they fought. But Pineda has never won by decision. So that factor alone is pretty interesting. If you plan to bet on Pineda, maybe say that it won't go to the decision. That might be a smarter bet. You might get more value there. Now, I love Cub Swanson. I think he's super talented. I think this could be a close fight. Regardless, I think it's going to be entertaining. But my pick is going to be Daniel Pineda, simply based mainly on the factor that Cub has been injured recently. He's probably more susceptible to the takedowns. If he could keep Pineda standing, then I have it going the other way. But my pick is going to be Daniel Pineda. All right, next fight. We got Junior Dos Santos versus Cyril Gane. It's interesting to me in this fight how the odds are pretty wide. Too wide, in my opinion. Although I think that Dos Santos winning is unlikely, it can happen. We've seen him bring the upset before, and he's always a threat. He may be old, but he's a threat, let's be honest. The guy's got 14 wins by knockout. However, he does have 3 losses in a row, so that, plays a factor as well. His age will play a factor. He's experienced on one hand, but on the other hand, he is weathered, right? He's weathered a few storms against serious competition that have probably put quite the bruisings on him. On the other side, Cyril's coming into this game hot. He's got loads of power. He might overwhelm Dos Santos and just knock him out. He's quick and he's got diverse skill sets. So Dos Santos doesn't have to just worry about his knockout power. He's got to worry about, submission attempts as well. He's got to worry about the speed. He's got to worry about leg kicks. And understand, Gane has 6-fight win streak. He hasn't lost yet, so he's 6-0. Cyril will also have a 4-inch reach advantage. So on top of all of those things combined and taking age factor into the consideration, I do pick Gane for this, but I do feel like the odds are a little wide for this fight. That's being honest. Experience at some point sometimes plays factors, especially with people like Dos Santos. And it's not like he's looked aged or weathered, but he's just getting there. It's apparent in the way he's fought recently. And, he's had losses recently, right? 3 losses in a row. So all those things playing a factor, and Gane kind of coming in, this might be a passing of the torch kind of scenario. We'll see. But I got Cyril Gane for the win. Next up, we got Kevin Holland versus Ronaldo Souza. Now we're going to start with Holland here. He has 9 wins by knockout, and he's won 4 straight. Now this is crazy. I didn't know he had this long of a reach advantage, but apparently he's got 9 inches reach advantage on Souza. So that and his long legs kind of like help him maintain reach, which is going to really benefit him in this fight. The weird thing, and I don't like this, like bouncy fighters, like he jumps up and down, straight up in the air a lot. And I kind of feel like although that gives you momentum and movement and unpredictability, at the same time, if someone like Jacare Souza is looking to get the takedown, that kind of bounce up and down isn't going to really help you get away from that, because as soon as you jump up, he might time that takedown, and it's going to be harder for you to sort of sprawl and prevent him. And it's not like Kevin Holland has like the best takedown defense. So I could see that being an approach that Jacare might take, especially since Holland's got the longer reach. I don't think Jacare is going to want to strike and stand the whole time. And let's remember, Jacare, he's got 17 wins by submission, so it would make sense for him to want to take him down even more. But Souza has only won 2 of his last 5 fights. He's getting old, but he doesn't look old. It's like the Dos Santos effect, you know what I mean? Like, he's aging, but he's not necessarily looking too old. And he's super talented and powerful. And actually, one thing that bothered me about the Souza situation was a few years ago when he was really kicking ass, I felt like he was overlooked for a shot at the title. Maybe that's just me, but I feel like he had this opportunity to get there and they just never gave it to him. They always put him up against other people who were working their way to the top. And although he was dominating, they just never gave him that opportunity. And I feel like that opportunity has been missed for Souza. That being said, I truly think he's going to look for the takedown. If he can take Holland down, then he's more than likely going to overwhelm Holland and win. The other thing is, I don't know what Holland is doing in this fight. I don't think he should be fighting this fight. I don't think he has a great chance of winning to begin with. The other thing is that, man, these fighters that are fighting back to back to back, you know, Holland has like had 4 fights back to back or something. It's insane. You know, how do you have time to rest? How do you have time to have a camp? How do you have time to prepare for a fighter like Souza? It's different when you're fighting maybe the Contender Series, you're fighting, you know, some other low-level fighters. Souza is very well experienced, and although Holland, I think he took out Joaquin in his last fight, that looked impressive, but it's not like Joaquin is someone to the caliber level of fighter that Souza is. And I think there's a bit of a level change there. Not to knock Holland, I think he's super talented. I think he's for sure going to rise to the occasion in the future. I just think that he would need more time to prepare for a fight like this. And I think Souza is just ready to be that alligator and take him out. Now, although because Souza hasn't looked great recently, I'm not overly confident with him. I do pick him to win this fight. Next up, we have Renato Moicano versus Rafael Fizeiv. Moicano's interesting. He's got 7 wins by submission. He's also got 7 wins by decision. Good. He's got great leg kicks, ground game, obviously with the submission attempts. He's also fast in movement, but also understand he's been knocked out twice. I say that because his opponent, Fizeiv, has 5 wins by knockout. He's very technical with his stand-up. Like, really good striking, really good leg kicks. I think he's also actually a striking coach. And just like the last fight, I think this one's going to come down to takedowns. I think Moicano's going to want to look to take down Fizeiv, but he'll probably look to also kick and beat up his legs first, kind of prevent him from getting in and getting those striking punches. If Fizeiv can prevent those takedowns, I think he's going to look good. I think he's going to be able to actually get in on Moicano, maybe even get the knockout. I think recently also Fizeiv has essentially fought the better competition. I think that always plays a factor. If you start beating guys that are a little underwhelming, I guess you could say, you know, you're not really elevating yourself to the next occasion. So I think here I'm going to go with Fizeiv, but he must defend any takedowns that Moicano brings. If you think Moicano's going to win, then I suggest you take him maybe by submission or decision. And Fizeiv, I'm going to go with knockout, but not guaranteed. So I'm just going to go Fizeiv for the win. Next up, a really fun fight, or what should be a fun fight, Tony Ferguson versus Charles Oliveira. Now, this fight screams problem to me for Charles Oliveira, and I'll break that down in a sec, but let's get into Tony Ferguson first. We know he's got 2 losses recently against 2 high competitive fighters, but he has 12 wins by knockout. He's great with his takedown defense. He's also wild on the feet. His jiu-jitsu skills on the ground are great. And he doesn't really quit. Like, he just keeps moving forward. He keeps pushing the pressure. We saw that in the Justin Gaethje fight. Like, Justin had to beat him up so bad before Tony just had enough. Going back to the jiu-jitsu and submission game, Charles Oliveira has 19 wins by submission. And he's on a 5-fight win streak. So he might also have those ground opportunities. We've also seen him improve a lot recently, whereas Tony's kind of had, a couple losses. I'm not taking away from Tony, so please, anyone who is taking this the wrong way, just understand that I'm talking about recently. I think this fight's going to come down to who has the better ground game, and whether or not they take it to the ground. If they stay standing, then Tony's probably got a slight edge. But in that case, then does Oliveira look to take it to the ground? And if he does, who's got the better ground game? I also can see Oliveira get a little tired because Tony pushes the pace a lot. But I mean, Oliveira himself is a quick fighter. He kind of has some pace to him too. The other thing that concerns me is apparently Oliveira claimed to be injured just before this fight. A lot of people think that he's just taking this fight because it's against Tony Ferguson. And that would make him look really good, and it would. But what's with taking a fight if you're injured? Who knows how that would play out if he's still injured? I'm going to go with Ferguson, but I also want to make a slight note. I think Ferguson's preparation technique is a little weird. He just does a lot of stuff that's out of the ordinary. The other day, I watched the Embedded series. I like watching those little short skits on YouTube. And he was like climbing up and down stairs, like in this dog position, like just weird things. So those are practices of Tony's that I just don't see how that helps you, but maybe focus on doing more practical applications. And maybe those are the reasons why he's had those losses recently. Although, there's nothing wrong with thinking outside the box. You want to do those kinds of things, cool, but just make sure that you're pushing it with the same practice of technical skills as well. And we know that Tony is very unorthodox, but that's something that tends to work for him. So for that factor, I'm going to go with Tony Ferguson. But if he loses this fight, I lose confidence in Tony until he kind of changes his training style to something that's more practical. On to the next fight, Deiveson Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno. This is one that we're all excited about, obviously. These two guys just fought. Not each other, but they just fought. And they both look pretty impressive. When they both just fought, understand that Deiveson Figueiredo didn't really get hit or touched during his fight, and he ended it quite quickly. Moreno did take some damage in his, so maybe if that plays a factor, consider it. I think you guys know who I'm going to pick already, but let's break down both these fighters just to give you guys a better look. We'll start with the champion, Figueiredo. He's the more skilled, probably the bigger threat. He's got more paths to victory. We've seen him win in so many different diverse ways. That guillotine choke, he can get it from any angle. It seems that way. I didn't even think he had it on Alex Perez. I'm like, why isn't Perez getting his head out of that empty hole? And it seemed like he just had him so tight in there, and he did. Choked him out. And this is going to play a factor here. I'm going to come back to this in a sec. But one thing I spoke about Figueiredo in the last fight was that he tends to draw his opponent out. And Brandon Moreno, he throws his punches and bunches, and he's got a lot of power to them. But we know that Figueiredo has that same power. I doubt this fight goes the distance, just based on all the variables and both their recent fights. Moreno has 4 of his last 5 fights were wins. The only thing that could be hard on Figueiredo here is cutting weight like 2 times in 1 month. But Moreno's doing the same thing, so I don't see that playing a factor. Figueiredo has the more accurate striking, but I feel like Moreno's got the more, as I said, punches and bunches. Moreno also has a 2-inch reach advantage, so that might help him out, but he's not as accurate in his striking, so keep that in mind. He has power behind every shot, but he's not accurate in his striking. I feel like he's a great fighter, and if anybody but Figueiredo was champion, Moreno would have a far better chance. In fact, I feel like Moreno would be someone that would be champion if Figueiredo just wasn't in the picture. But unfortunately for everybody in this division, Figueiredo is in the picture. So, they're in line waiting. There's nothing they can do. It's kind of like the Nunes effect. Like, you kind of have this champion who is unbeaten and can't be beaten. I just feel like everybody in the division right now is a level below Figueiredo. And there's going to be a huge gap between him and all the other fighters for a while. All of these fighters have to improve to another level in order to beat this guy. If Moreno wins, I would be highly impressed. I'm not saying that he doesn't stand a chance and that he's not a good fighter at all. He's super skilled. And as I said, if Figueiredo wasn't in the picture, I could see Moreno being the champion in the division. But one thing that bothers me that Moreno has done in his past fight was he puts his head in that position to get guillotine choked. He puts his head right under the arms. He did it with the Royval fight. He's done it with many of his fights. I think it's when he's going for a takedown or something. He just tends to put his head in that right position. I think Figueiredo is going to take advantage of that if that happens. It's those minor things that he does that I think Figueiredo could take advantage of. And for that fact, I got Figueiredo to win this fight. All right, guys, so that's the end of this week's video. Thank you so much for watching. Do me a favor, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and the notify button. All those things help me. I have a goal to get to my first 100 subscribers. We're 1/5 of the way there, I think. So help me out, help me get there, and I hope to continue to post videos. But thanks so much for watching, and to all the people who have already subscribed, I really appreciate that, and we will catch you next time. I am the MMA Hoodie. Peace out.